Alright, so let's get right into this one. What we're going to be doing here today is small adjustments, or maybe not so small, but just adjustments that are possible, adjustments that are in the control of the fighters that would take them to that next level. Maybe from a contender to a top contender, maybe from top contender level to championship level, and just it's not necessarily fixing glaring weaknesses with these fighters because these are all top level fighters. It's just what would take them from losing competitive fights to winning those same competitive fights. So let's start with Ian Garry, and this is something that he has been criticized for in the past, and I think this is something that did pretty clearly affect him in his fight with Shavkat, right? So it would appear that in that fight he was probably the more skilled fighter on the feet. I think that's pretty well accepted at this point. But the thing is, on the feet, Shavkat was able to outdamage him at points. Shavkat was able to throw him up against the cage and hold him there. And it's not because Ian Garry is naturally a small guy or naturally a weak guy. He's just not, I believe, at his full potential athletically. I believe he could be maybe a few pounds bigger or just maintain weight, but add some muscle, right? He has a little bit of fat around his belly, it looks like. It looks like he's lost muscle, honestly, since he started. A lot of people point to the vegan diet thing. I don't know. I'm not a dietitian. It would seem that that would affect him negatively, but he has his dietitians. But if it's not working, try something else, right? Or maybe he's just not doing any sort of lifting. He's not doing any sort of like explosive lifting that would be good for a fighter. I think he could add some muscle, and that's going to give him more strength. It's going to give him more power, more finishing potential. I think that's what really hurt him in his fight with Shavkat. That's the difference between him fighting down the rankings in his next fight, probably, and fighting it for the belt, is him having that slight bit of athleticism, explosiveness to hurt Shavkat on the feet, to push him off against the fence, to stuff one more takedown, right? To maybe get that choke in from the back. Just that extra bit of leverage, extra bit of power, extra bit of danger, extra bit of explosiveness would go a long way in Ian Garry's game because technically it's all there. Polished striking, technical striking, good takedown defense, decent wrestling, good jiu-jitsu on the ground. We saw he almost finished Shavkat on the ground. So Ian Garry is a guy, and he's still young. He's 27, 28, I believe. He has a lot of time left in his athletic prime. He has time to improve his physical powers, right? I think this guy needs to take a step back and recognize that technically he is where he needs to be. He's at that championship level. But when you look at guys like Bilal, guys like Shavkat, guys like Jack Della Maddalena, guys like Leon, I think the main difference between them and him is that physically they stand out from him. They're stronger, faster. Not all of them, but like they all have one physical attribute that is a standout trait. Like Bilal Muhammad, extremely strong, great cardio. Same with Shavkat. Leon Edwards, extremely fast, explosive, even though he doesn't use that to his best ability. Jack Della Maddalena, strong and explosive, powerful. Carlos Pratas, powerful. So I think Ian Garry needs to really work on his athleticism in the next camp, work on some power, maybe even put on some weight, work on some strength. I think that would do wonders for Ian Garry. I think an athletic Ian Garry is a problem for every single person in the welterweight division. Alright, next up we got Sean Strickland. I think he just needs to add a leg kick, right? A lot of things been going around about Sean Strickland being boring lately, and yeah, he has been boring lately. If you think about his best ever performance against Israel Adesanya, what he did was kind of beat Adesanya, not really by doing his own damage, but by negating the damage of Adesanya, and that's what he's done in the fights that he's won. That's what he did against Paulo Costa. He did do pretty good damage against Dricus du Plessis, but a lot of that was kind of like reactionary damage, right? That was just trying to stop Dricus with the jabs. That wasn't really going forward at Dricus. So what I think would help him without trying to change his whole defensive style is just add a leg kick in there, right? Obviously, a lot of his game is checking leg kicks, which does damage of its own, but you don't ever want to be in the position where your offense relies only on countering, only on checking. You want to be able to take initiative and be um, taking action instead of just being reactionary. You want to be proactive rather than reactive. Even though he has had success with that style, I don't think he's going to be able to beat a guy like Dricus du Plessis, a guy like Hamzat probably, without some way to damage, like to take initiative to cause damage on his own, right? So he can keep his Philly shell kind of thing, his arms up. It's not really a Philly shell, but he can keep his little guard, right? He can keep walking forward, he can keep teeping, but instead of just standing there when nothing's happening and maybe throwing out a jab every now and then, throw in a leg kick. I know it makes it harder for him to have his one leg up style, right? Always one leg up, trying to check, threatening a teep, but maybe add in a front leg kick or even a back leg kick. I think that would help a lot. That would cause some damage to the opponents while Sean Strickland is running his defense, give them something else to think about, maybe even open it up for Sean Strickland to throw his hands a little bit, because he does have pretty slick 1-2s, right? He can damage with that. We saw that against Israel Adesanya. The one good straight right that he landed put him down. So I think that is an area where Sean Strickland could improve his game a lot. I don't think he's at the championship level right now when the guys up there are looking like Dricus, Hamzat. Obviously, he does have the title shot coming up, but I've got my money on Dricus in that one. So I think this is a way that Sean Strickland could greatly improve his game. Right. Next for Max Holloway, kind of a small thing, kind of something that I do expect him to do, moving up to lightweight. I think as good as Max Holloway was at featherweight, I think he may have even more potential to be an all-time great at lightweight, right? He's still relatively young, like 31, 32, which is crazy because he's been around so long, and he is coming off a pretty bad knockout. But I think he'll be really, really good at lightweight, and I think we saw that in the Justin Gaethje fight. I think the main difference between featherweight Holloway and lightweight Holloway is the power, because Max Holloway took that fight with pretty good notice. I think he had 8 or 9 months to prepare for that fight, and you could tell that he was a little bigger in that fight, and the main difference was the power, right? Typically we see Max Holloway putting a ton of damage on guys, putting a ton of volume, but not necessarily rocking them around. He rocked Gaethje multiple times in that fight and obviously flatlined him, which we have rarely ever seen from Max Holloway, right? Usually it's either a volume TKO or just a dominant decision in the striking for Holloway. No, in the Gaethje fight, we saw Max Holloway flatline KO, and I think a lot of that is down to the extra size that he's able to have at lightweight. I think he keeps that technical ability, but he adds that power, which I think is amazing for Max Holloway. I expect him in his next fight, since he's been planning this move to lightweight, probably even before he lost that fight to Ilya. I think in his next fight we'll see the biggest, most powerful Max Holloway that we've ever seen. I think his striking, as we saw against Gaethje, is going to be levels above everybody except maybe Islam at lightweight. So I'm excited for Max to be fighting at lightweight. I think a bulk is going to help him out, because the one attribute he missed in the past that could have helped him against Volk, right? That could have helped him against Poirier when he was moving up in the past, is that size and power. And I think he's going to be able to put that on now, because he's not going to be worried about having to cut back to featherweight. He's done with featherweight, moving on to lightweight. I want to see a big, powerful Max Holloway. Alright, and then similar kind of thing, but not really. This is kind of like an attitude change I want to see from Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori, one of the best chins we've ever seen, took a significant strike record from Jared Cannonier, who is a powerful guy at middleweight, without being finished. I'm not sure he even got dropped in that fight. Just went back and rewatched a few of those rounds and didn't see him get dropped. That is an incredible chin, right? He's still relatively young. I think he's like 30, 31. He didn't fight all of 2024, which is probably good for his chin. I hope he's coming back, and he's coming back ready to brawl, right? Because what I see a lot from Marvin Vettori, he tries to play the technical striker's game, throwing his jab out there, leg kicking. Marvin, he's just not good enough for that, right? He's never going to win a fight against a guy like Sean Strickland, a guy like Israel Adesanya, a guy like Dricus du Plessis by doing that. What Marvin needs to do, he needs to take advantage of his chin and he needs to brawl. Kind of like a guy like Max Holloway used to do. Obviously, he was still technical, Max Holloway, but when he needed to, he would just go in there, have faith in his chin, and know that my chin is going to outperform your power, and my power is going to outperform your chin. I would love to see Marvin Vettori just take his chances in his next fight. Not sure who it'll be because he has been out for a while, but he is still pretty highly ranked at middleweight. Probably a fight down the rankings, which is probably best, especially for a comeback fight. I believe he should just go out there, swing, leave his chin up if he needs to, just go out there to take less damage than he receives. No, to receive less damage than he gives out, or even receive more damage. Just take it, right? Because he has the chin to take it. This is a guy that needs to go out there, sacrifice being hit to land punches of your own, and you're going to be successful because you do have that natural attribute, and he's just not making enough of that by trying to fight on the outside, trying to jab his way in and wrestle. Don't do that. Just brawl. Alright, next we got Mauricio Ruffy, and obviously we haven't seen all that much of him, so the only real criticism and adjustments he can make come from his last fight against James Yodtop, in which he did look very good in moments, but there were also worrying moments in which he looked like he was kind of running out of ideas, and he was starting to get tagged up by Yodtop, who is not really that great of a fighter, although he did have good moments in that fight. I think what Mauricio Ruffy's issue was in that fight, and I think this is something that will change with UFC experience. I'm not really worried about this. I still see this guy as a great prospect. He looked like he was chasing the finish too much, and he wanted to do it in a crazy way. Now, he did land that crazy look away left hook, and it did nearly finish Yontop. He had a few moments where the average guy would have been finished, but Yontop had an amazing chin, amazing heart, and toughness. So, but what I believe would take Mauricio Ruffy to that rankings level is patience, right? We see when you really try to hunt for that KO is when it doesn't end up happening. You get frustrated, and then you end up being the one getting tagged up, and it just leads to a spiral of getting worse and worse while getting more and more frustrated. I think the best knockout artists, guys like Alex Pereira, right? They just stick to their game, jab when it comes, maybe hit him with a power punch, right? Set things up, but if what you're setting up doesn't knock the guy out on your first try, patience, relax, just keep going, okay? As long as you are landing the consistently more damaging strikes, that is going to be more impressive, even if it goes to decision, than you having great moments but also having bad moments, right? I believe if Mauricio Ruffy would have just kind of cruised to a 3-round decision, obviously trying hard, putting his jab out there, just outclassing Yodtop in every way, instead of kind of sacrificing bad moments to have these great moments, I think people would have been even more impressed with that performance, and it would have been more likely that the finish would present itself, because when you are just consistently outclassing your opponent, it does present itself opportunities to land that finishing strike, which Mauricio Ruffy also definitely has the potential for. So, patience for Mauricio Ruffy will take him a long way. Alright, and then next we got Ciryl Gane. This is a super obvious one, but it's also a super important one. And for an athletic, strong, heavy guy like Ciryl Gane, there's no reason that he can't have elite takedown defense, right? We've seen some of the best takedown defense people in the past, guys like Jose Aldo, Robert Whitaker, not necessarily guys that have wrestling backgrounds, but guys that are athletic, light on their feet. They're able to skip away from takedowns, right? They're able to balance on one leg. They're able to kind of really plant themselves into the ground, spread their base, do what they need to do to defend takedowns. And a lot of what takes you from being average at takedown defense to being like an all-time great at takedown defense is athleticism, right? Being light on your feet, like I said. And at heavyweight, aside from Tom Aspinall, Ciryl Gane is by far the most athletic, conventionally athletic, right? He's light on his feet, he's bouncing around, he's skipping around the cage, he's quick. There's no reason that guys like Volkov, as good as he is, he's not on the same level athletically as Ciryl Gane. There's no reason that a guy like that, who isn't all that high level of a wrestler, right? He is primarily a striker. There's no reason that a guy like that should be able to take you down relatively easily, right? There's no reason that a guy like Francis Ngannou should be taking you down. John Jones obviously is a really great wrestler, but there's no reason that he should be taking you down effortlessly and effortlessly submitting you. You need to be able to make it hard for these guys, even if you are eventually being taken down. At your size, at your skill, at your athleticism level, it needs to be a challenge to take you down, right? It shouldn't be easy. And it's an easy thing to learn relatively. Um, Obviously, it takes years of wrestling to really be a high level wrestler, but to have good takedown fits, you do not have to be a high level wrestler. I promise you that. All you have to do is learn the basics, get your practice in, and just apply that. And what I think the problem is with Ciryl Gane is that he just doesn't feel a need to either learn at all or to get that practice in because he's happy where he is. He makes a lot of money. He likes to fight a little bit, I guess. He likes to strike. Once it comes to the grappling, he's like, oh, I guess the fight's over, right? I lose. Even though he does win occasionally. But also a problem with God, I believe, is he's kind of okay with being taken down because he wants to try these heel hooks and stuff on the ground, which is not going to work for him. It never has before. What he really needs to do is fight and fight hard to keep it on the feet where he does have that advantage against almost every single heavyweight in MMA history, in my opinion. So, Ciryl Gane, work on your takedown defense. You have all of the physical skills. You're still relatively young for a heavyweight. You could take your level from top contender to a guy that could compete with John Jones and Tom Aspinall for the true greatest heavyweight currently. Alright, and then last, I wanted to talk about Sean O'Malley, a guy that does have incredible striking, really good takedown defense, at least against Aljo. So what I think the issue is with Sean O'Malley, and it's obviously not that big of an issue because this is a guy that was a champion and in my opinion has the potential to be a dominant champion in the future and reclaim his belt. What Sean O'Malley needs to add to his game is that great finishing instinct. Now, you might be saying Sean O'Malley has plenty of knockouts, TKOs. It's true, but typically his knockouts come from kind of one punch and he's done. I think the exception is against Aljamain Sterling when he knocked him down badly. But even then, there was a pretty good chance that Aljo had of surviving that. Sean O'Malley had to land like 20 follow-up strikes, which weren't the most effective ground and pound, to be honest. There were some referees that may have let that continue, and if they did, I do believe that Aljo would have been able to come back. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad stoppage. I think Sean O'Malley still would have won that fight. Probably would have knocked him down again. Maybe worse this time. But I don't think his finishing instinct is all the way to the level it could be. I think the best example of this is his fight against Merab when he was being frustrated in the grappling the whole fight mostly. And then at the end of the 5th round, he hurt him badly with a kick to the body. And instead of absolutely swarming him, letting punches to the body, knees to the body, more kicks to the body, what he did, he just tried that teep to the body a couple more times. He almost did end up finishing Merab with that, but I believe when you are in the 5th round of what you are losing your title fight in a massive card in the Sphere, you need to be able to rush in there and give it everything to finish that fight. And I think this is something that Sean O'Malley can add to his game, something he could specifically train that is going to let him beat guys like Merab, maybe guys like Umar in the future, guys like Petr Yan when he hurts them. So that's something that I think Sean O'Malley should add. And yeah, that wraps up the video today. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.